incredible journeys, and I think that we are better than this. That's because you have so much potential, and I believe in what you guys can do. Just because we're senior citizens doesn't mean we need to waste away and have 120 places to play this, or 120 places to play cornhole, or 298 places to play bocce ball or table shuffleboard. We can get away from these stereotypes and at least think about these things or do about some of these journeys. So we can get away from the bingo mentality and the shuffleboard, and instead you can have an adventure day. Make a day that Tom Sawyer and Becky Thatcher would be proud of. So this is what I'm after, because we can do so many things because our reach can exceed our grasp. So today we'll go on a pilgrimage hiking trail, El Camino de Santiago, one of the most famous trails in the world, finding the Bismarck battleship in the North Atlantic, hiking up Mount Everest. How exactly do they do that? Living on hiking across and skiing across the North Pole. Living on the International Space Station. Really, now you live there, but how do you use the bathroom there? Sailing around the world, circumnavigating in a sailboat, finding the source of the Amazon River, and following its entire course by following a drop of water for 4,000 miles in the continent of South America, and hiking the entire Great Wall of China.
Wow.
So, this is the El Camino de Santiago, which is really a pilgrimage hiking trail in northern Spain. It goes for 500 miles, and 300,000 hikers a year hike it, mainly mainly Europeans do this, but it mainly looks like this. And you go through this course like this. It takes about 5 weeks to do it, and you're in a group with fellow hikers, and you start at the town called Saint-Gilles-Pied-de-Port in France, a little bit over the Pyrenees, and you take this long walk through all these towns in northern Spain. Your first leg walks over the Pyrenees, and on this well-maintained and heavily traveled and safe route, you can visit all these towns in Spain. And you want to ultimately, though, get to the end of it, which is really here in Santiago, which is the church where St. James's bones are interred there. On the way, you go through these Spanish towns and stay in hostels. And the cost for them is about 10 euros just to stay in a bunk bed situation. Your meals are a little extra, and yes, they have laundry. So you walk about 12 miles a day to do this. If you wish to, you don't have to do the whole thing, last 100 miles, whatever fits your bill. Europeans have a lot of time off for vacation. And you get your passport stamped in the towns you pass through, and you get a certificate at the end for completing this, if you do this all the way. You follow this kind of trail, you follow him, what he did, you follow this kind of sign, and you go down these roads. You go through these kind of towns, you can bicycle it, go over these kind of bridges, and follow this sign. This is how you get to know a country. You don't get to know it by going on a bus, taking a picture for 15 minutes, and then going on the bus and going somewhere else to be sold rugs or pottery. Mainly what you want to do is get to know the place. If you have the time and have the interest, this is how you do this. And you go through these towns, there's at least 30 of them on the way. Some major towns are Pamplona, Burgos, and Leon. There's about 30 of them, walking about a dozen miles a day. You can hopscotch your way through northern Spain, ending up at the church. So, and along the way you see a lot of rural pastoral scenes, like grazing cattle, sheep, lush vineyards, the countryside of Spain. So this is a long and winding road. When you go for walks like this, and when you go for walks like this here in the villages, this is a way to achieve mindfulness. That is, thinking about something, just one thing, and that's all. And you can solve problems when you walk also. And with no cell phones, that's the best way to get away. So 25% of people do it for the penance or the pilgrimage part. Another 25% do it as a physical challenge, and 50% do it just to get away from it all and be involved in this fantastic scenery. You take a big backpack with you that covers, you carry all your supplies in it, toiletries, long pants, short pants, long sleeves, short sleeves, to get through this kind of journey. And it was done in a movie called The Way. Actor Martin Sheen was in it, and it's about a man who has to resolve a problem, and he does this by walking through this trail. This is one of the most famous walking trails in Europe. To go on trails like this, to go through towns like this, to follow this sign, to end up in this kind of church. And it is about the journey, not the outcome. Moving on. In July of 1988, Dr. Robert Ballard found the battleship Bismarck in the North Atlantic. And it was 400 miles west of Brest, France. It's 15,700 feet down. That's over 3 miles down in the Atlantic Ocean. He was able to find the wreck of this, and the Bismarck was a really powerful Nazi warship that was 820 feet long and weighed 50,000 tons fully loaded. She carried 2,000 men and 100 officers and was the pride of the Nazi Navy. They really wanted to blockade England with this, so they sunk some battleships like the Hood. 1,400 British sailors died on this because she sunk this. So we wanted to get even with Nazi Germany, and we did. And in a tumultuous and dramatic sea battle in May of 1941, we sunk her with Allied troops, British and American forces sinking her. It was a tremendous sea battle that happened. It's called Sink the Bismarck. She was only afloat for 8 months before she got sunk, and this was really a heartbreak for the Nazis doing this. So, what happened to her? Well, she was she struck an extinct volcano 3,000 feet down underwater on its descent and slid down the mountain, coming down about 2/3 of the way down. And so Ballard found her and found pretty much everything intact, except the back third of it was destroyed. So the battery turrets, aircraft guns are still in proper positions, but the conning tower and bridge are heavily damaged. But in the debris field that surrounds the hull lays the foremast, mainmast, and funnels. The stern or back part was cut off. So this is Dr. Ballard. He's famous for finding the Titanic back in '85, JFK's PT-109, and as well as the Lusitania. And he went down with this underwater survey ship called the Alban, especially designed to go 2 miles an hour underwater and go down 3 miles deep under there. It's got some portholes. It's stored on a ship with a crane. This is what he found. This is his ship, the Alban, and he went down to investigate this. And just like the Titanic, he wanted to be left to be not disturbed. So he's an adventurer and explorer. He writes books on this and did lectures on it. And he wanted to witness, this is really witnessing underwater archaeology and getting a better idea of what happened with this kind of wreck. Now we're going to move down from 3 miles underneath the water. We're going to go up 45,000 feet to the top of Mount Everest, which is the world's tallest mountain. It is 29,000 feet tall. That's almost 6 miles tall. It is on the border between, it's in Nepal, between Nepal and Tibet, which is really China. And this is a tremendous mountain to climb. We're going to find out how they did this. Actually, it's so tall that when you climb to the top of it, you're in the stratosphere about 4,000 feet lower than what planes would fly in. So there isn't much oxygen there. And the bodies of 200 people are still left on the mountain because they're too hard to remove. Actually, about over 300 people have died climbing it. And you go through temperatures of between -4 and -30 below, with wind speeds that can be up to 100 miles per hour. It's a very dangerous place, forbidding, but it's going to the extreme. We find out how they do this. You need a hiking permit then from the POW, it costs $11,000. You need to be on a professional hiking team, that'll cost you over $100,000. There's some various fees. Each bottled oxygen, costs $600. You need about 7 or 8 of them. So you're gonna need a hefty investment with no guarantee to get to the top. So what do you need to do for this? You need months and months of intensive training to be able to work at this. You have to be in top physical condition. And you need these kind of workouts with this kind of equipment that's professional grade equipment, no Walmart stuff. You need stuff that's gonna be able to withstand really cold temperatures and very durable, and it better work for you because your life is on the line if it doesn't work. So, you could spend time in a hyperbaric chamber to increase the number of red blood cells you have that carry oxygen, which is important. Plus, you'll need prior hiking experience, like climbing Kilimanjaro in Kenya. We were in Kenya last year. We met a man that climbed up it. It was the hardest thing for this guy to have done in his life, but he made it up. Or the mountain in Europe. I forgot the name of it. That's close. Mount Blanc in Europe. Thank you. It's 16,000 feet. My mind went blank. And then Mount McKinley, which is called Denali, at 20,000 feet, and Mount Everest, which is an extinct volcano in southern Russia, the highest mountain in Europe, at 18,000 feet, or Mount Aconcagua in Argentina at 22,000 feet. You need prior experience doing this. This is not a walk in the park. So in order to be able to do this, you need to have as much volume of oxygen as possible in your body. In order to do that, you need to be aerobically fit and to work out with running weights, because after about 19,000 feet, you're going to need an oxygen mask because you're going to have half the air. So how do they get there? Well, you have to trek out to there's no roads to get out there per se. You have to walk into your base camp, and you do that. It takes you about 6 days. Yaks carry in needed supplies like tents, water, food, provisions, heavy things. And what you're going to do is you're going to fly into Lhasa, to Nepal, at 12,000 feet, and you're going to walk about 6 days to go up a mile in elevation to your base camp. But the whole procedure is about getting acclimated to the altitude, because if you're not acclimated, you will get high altitude sickness like headaches, loss of appetite, vomiting, irritability, insomnia, dizziness, or like anything you get when you read a legal document. Plus you might get serious situations like blood embolisms, edema, and hallucinations, and this is serious. So what you want to do is get acclimated, spend 6 days going out there, and you go to these various camps. At base camp, it's 50% oxygen level that you have at sea level. This is base camp at 17,700 feet. Here's the last hurrah for any creature comforts like chairs. Maybe you can take a shower, you can check the weather, and relax to get acclimated to go up. You'll be hiking with these Sherpas, which are local Tibetans that are excellent hikers and are used to this kind of environment, and they make money from these expeditions that you pay for. And this is a base camp there with these kind of tents, because you'll be going up this glacier right here, right away. So, these are the yaks that carry this in. And they have a waste disposal area. Actually, any waste is taken down to a valley and put in a large hole. However, there's a garbage problem on Mount Everest. They have 100,000 pounds of just leftover trash on the mountain. This is because over decades, hundreds and hundreds of hikers have left stuff on the mountain. It's too hard to take down, or no one cares. So this year alone, they had 11 tons of garbage removed, with 4 dead bodies and a skeleton from Everest during this year's climbing season. So it's a mess up there because there's too many people, because it's not regulated, because the apologist cares about the money, but it brings it in, and it's a good experience. So it'll take you about 2 months in order to handle everything about this hike. 2 months. You start in mid-March, and you want to go up around mid-May. And the whole issue is getting acclimated to the altitude. Start at base camp, and you're going to climb this 3-mile-long glacier called the Khumbu Ice Fall that goes up here, and you go to Camp 1, Camp 2, Camp 3, Camp 4, and this is the Lotus facade, which is not where you want to go, but it's a close by mountain, and then Everest, which you want to get to. On the way, there are avalanches that come down, and we're going to go through this, and you start in May. And you go through the Khumbu Ice Fall, which has thousands of house-sized boulders that is very difficult to get through. In order to get through this, it'd take you a 12-hour hike to get through this at 19,000 feet. It's treacherous and dangerous, and being a geology major, I wanted to tell you more about this because you hike up this kind of glacier to go to this mountain, and yes, this is what it takes to get up there with the ice fall. And this is one of the most dramatic and dangerous ice falls in the world because in 2014, 16 Sherpas were killed in an avalanche. So it takes from you. This is what it's like climbing through there. And if you're not acclimated to this, you have to go back down and get acclimated. There are various routes that go through this. Remember, this is a river of ice that moves a few feet a week or even more. So things can be dangerous at any time. This is them climbing. This is what you have to go through. And yes, these are snow stairs. This is why you have to be in top physical condition to do this. Climbing up this. These are the ice fall doctors. They're local Tibetans that set up ladders to be able to do this in the spring and then the time you're going to hike, so you can get up easier. And they're very dedicated doing this because they're part of a team to do this. Ice fall doctors that carry their own ladders. This is them going up. One false move. And at this point, you're carrying a 50-pound backpack with your provisions in it. Everything is on the line right here, including special boots, special pants, special gloves. Everything you have is in there, a tent, provisions that you need. So you're carrying everything you got. At 19,900 feet is Camp 1, after going up the Khumbu Ice Fall. And at this point, you might need oxygen, you might not. And Camp 2 is at 21,300 feet. And every day, you're going up hundreds, if not thousands of feet in elevation. And there are sometimes helpers that help you along the way. Like at certain camps, they might have cooks and things like that to help you out with expeditions doing that. So you're at Camp 2 at 21,300. Camp 3 is at 24,500 feet. And in order to get from Camp 3 to Camp 4, you need to go through a col, which is a pass in the mountains to get from 3 to 4. At this point, you're burning between 6,000 to 10,000 calories a day and experiencing shortness of breath, really. And Camp 4 is at 26,000 feet. And sometimes this is ice and snow-free, and it's about 3,000 vertical feet to the top. Camp 4 looks like this to go up here. But Camp 4 is also known as the death zone because it knocks out a lot of hikers because you just can't get enough oxygen. You're 1/3 oxygen than you have now. Actually, 2/3 less. 2/3 less oxygen. So you need bottled oxygen. And this is where a lot of hikers experience problems and experience those problems with high altitude sickness. And it's very difficult at this level to make a tent, to make coffee. You can't think right. You need oxygen, and it's very difficult to survive because we're not meant to survive at this level, but we do it. Then you want to go up the balcony to the top at this point. which looks like this. You're on your way to the top, and it looks like this.
No way would I do that.
And hundreds of hikers that go up in May. 6 years ago, they had over 800 hikers go up over a period of a couple of days to get to the top. And it's a rush to get there because last minute weather derails plans for 1 out of 4 people, which means they can't get to the top. So next year they have to come back and pay the same amount of money to do the same thing. So it's a shot, And quite a number of people go up. It's mass ascent in mid-May. And there's a break in the weather, that's why this happens. And at this point, all these people have spent all this amount of money to be away from their family, to have this dream, excuse me, to be able to go up this mountain. This is their dream of their life, because it's the ultimate bucket list. And it's the stairway to heaven as they go up. And once you're at the top, there's a table-sized area to take pictures. Take pictures, and you can rappel back down partially or go back the same way. At this point, you're wearing oxygen masks because you have to. No one can breathe at this point, and you're on top of the world. So, why? Because it's there. Now, let's talk about something else more interesting, just as interesting. You can actually hike across the North Pole from land to go across. Actually, this is all ice covered, 6 to 10 feet of ice. Beneath this is the Arctic Ocean that's thousands of feet deep and freezing cold to be in. You can walk on top of this ice, or actually, you can actually pull a 300-pound sled to be able to do this, which has all your provisions, and you can do it this way. There's a lot of, the ice is not even. There's a lot of fractures in the ice, and that's why it makes these fractured ice flows on the Arctic surface. It's not all flat ice. And the woman who did this in 1988 was Helen Thayer. She had, I'm sorry, she walked this 365-mile journey all by herself with her dog, Charlie, a husky. And she did this on her own. Actually, the Inuits gave her the dog to protect her against polar bears, because polar bears came up about 9 times. Her dog saved her because it could see better and smell better than she can. So she did this all and did it herself. She also walked across the entire Gobi Desert, 1,600 miles when she was 63 and her husband was 74. She walked across this, and she dealt with drug smugglers, scorpions, and 120-degree heat, and that's where she is right now. And the Gobi Desert is between Mongolia and China. She also walked across the Sahara Desert from the western part, Morocco, to the eastern part, to the Nile. That's 4,000 miles. So she wrote books about it and gives lectures, like Polar Bear, her adventures walking across the Gobi, and she lived with a wolf den for 6 months with her and her husband and her dog, and she wrote about all these adventures. That's my kind of lady, because she's got titanium legs. Or you can go across yourself, which is dangerous, and yeah, that's the Arctic Ocean. Or you can join an expedition called Ice Trek. You pay them about 50,000 euros, and you get all the provisions you need, training, and you pull your own sled across to the North Pole, to the center of it, where the exact North Pole is. They give you everything you need to do this, and it takes you a number of weeks to get through this. These are the provisions that you would need and equipment. Everything's waterproof, everything's survival gear. You put it all in this boat, which you pull along on that. Communications, tents, supplies, and everything's backed up tremendously to do this. Or, instead of walking across, you could ski across with the North Pole last degree ski. And this cost about 60,000 euros. And what you do is you start from the town of Longyearbyen, which is on mainland. Norway owns this. And you ski about 8 miles a day for 3 weeks. and you can get to the center where the North Pole is. So this is how you ski across. You carry all your provisions. They give you equipment, training, provisions that you need. You have insurance with this, and places to stay in Longyearbyen. This is how you go across with the skis, about 8 miles a day. This is them going through all these crevasses and do this. And this is how you walk or ski across doing this. And in the end, you get picked up by a helicopter and be taken back. So, or you can walk back if you wish. Now we're going to move to something that's 250 miles up in space, and it's called the ISS, International Space Station, which is the size of a football field. It's been in orbit for about 20 years. It's divided into modular sections. Half of it's the Russians, half of it's us. And it's the most expensive object ever made. It costs $150 billion. It orbits Earth every 90 minutes, which means you see a sunrise and sunset every 45 minutes. And it's 240 feet long, 237 feet wide, and you can see it in the sky sometimes. And in order to get up there, you need to take a Falcon 9 rocket by SpaceX. We experienced 3G force to get up. Each seat costs $60 million. So 8 trips with 2 people in it will cost over $1.2 billion to get up. NASA pays SpaceX to do this because it's too expensive with NASA. So this is how you go up. And you dock. It takes 19 hours to dock with the ISS. Here they are docking with it. And docking with it. And the space station will have these solar panels. There's an acre's worth of solar panels on it that produces 84 kilowatts of energy, enough to power 40 homes that they use for batteries, and they use to make oxygen, which we'll get to in a minute. Eating in space is very much like camping. They have everything pre-made, which you already know about. And things like salt and pepper, well, that's in a liquid form, so it doesn't clog the vents. What you wear cannot produce lint, because you know with your dryer how much lint that produces that can clog vents. So this is what they eat in space. And so the big thing about this is, how do you use the bathroom in space? Well, you can. They have packets that you put of shampoo and water that you can spritz on your hair and take a sponge bath this way. This way they used to take it. And this is the toilet. This is a $150,000 toilet made of titanium. And how you use this is you strap your legs in here so you don't float away. Once you open the lid, fans suck waste and air into this to have everything go down. And this is how you do it. They usually recycle the urine also. You have 4 gallons doing that on the American side. So this is how they use it. You have ingestible toothpaste, you can't spit out in space. It'll go all over. And you need to exercise in space, about 2 hours a day. Okay, so you use a treadmill and you use some isometric bands. The problem with this is there's nothing pushing down on you to make your muscles move. So when they land on the ground, especially cosmonauts and Chinese astronauts, they can't walk. It takes about 2 or 3 days to get used to it once they're up there for 6 months. So how are you going to go to Mars? It takes 6 months to go if you can't walk. Well, I guess they'll have to solve that problem. But Mars has a lower gravity than we do. So how you sleep? You're in a tethered bag like this. You can sleep in any position. Or you can sleep in a module. Sometimes they have these. Excuse me. With a laptop, and you can fall asleep in any position. You might need the lights are on all the time because you get 45 minutes of light and 45 minutes of darkness all the time. You can sleep in any position. Okay, so what do they do up there? They fix the ship on the outside using, sometimes they have safety checks, and they work on experiments that are given to them. Like, can a spider produce a web in space? Can a fly fly in outer space? That kind of thing. And they check on equipment here because they have hundreds and hundreds of sensors to check out every day and batteries to check on. Sometimes they advertise things to make money in space. They use that. But most of the time, they have when they have free time, they can contact their family and email them. Mission Control sets that up, or just look out the window because the view is to die for. So how do they get supplies? Well, a Falcon 9 takes about 6,000 pounds worth of clean clothes, provisions like food, experiments up, but mainly they take water up. This gallon of water is one of the most important things because it'll cost about $25,000 to put this on the ISS because it weighs 9 pounds. To put this gallon on the moon will cost $100,000. To put this gallon on Mars will cost $1 million. So they're thinking about building a moon base, and there is water on the moon that's frozen in craters. They want to take that out and use that to drink, to filter drink, and to make oxygen. So that's the logistics behind water, the most important thing. Anyways, they take them in packets like this, pardon me for doing that, and they store them in modules like this. The space station is 13,600 cubic feet, so they have room to do this. And how do they make oxygen? Well, you remember those solar panels? Well, the energy from that, they use an electrode and put that into water, which separates the hydrogen from the oxygen, and then they're able to store the oxygen. So that's how they're able to do this. On the moon, it'll be the same way. They can take moon ice, thaw it out, and do the same thing. They need power from solar panels on the south pole of the moon to do that. Same thing, sort of, maybe on Mars, but maybe not. And who else has a space station? We're in competition, direct competition, with the Chinese right now. They have Tiangong. Their space station's been up for 2 years. They have 3 astronauts in it. And we're in a space race with them because they want to be on the moon's south pole also. And they have ambitious plans. And they're doing it right now. What will happen to the ISS? It'll be deorbited in 31. It'll fall into the ocean, and the new space station will go around the moon, called the Lunar Gateway, which will orbit around the moon and help out and ferry astronauts to the moon and back, or to Mars and back. It'll hold about 4 astronauts, be about 1/5 the size of the space station. Will this weigh 63 tons, not 500 tons. And this is what's going on right now in space. Now I'm going to switch gears and talk about sailing around the world or circumnavigating the world on a sailboat. This is a lot of people have this kind of dream, and it's a beautiful dream to have. So how do you do this? Well, first of all, there are trade winds and ocean currents. Ocean currents are called gyres, G-Y-R-E-S. And what they do is like the Gulf Stream, it goes in a big circular pattern clockwise. In the southern Atlantic, it goes counterclockwise. In the South Pacific, it goes counterclockwise, and it goes counterclockwise, and in the North Pacific, it goes clockwise, and along in the Indian Ocean and around Antarctica. So the winds and the currents really go both ways. Columbus was right when he said that's how he explained it to the people, that they go both ways. There are various routes you can do to circumnavigate the world. You can do it fast way or slow way. It might take you 9 to 15 months to do this, stopping in ports if you want to, or it could take longer stopping, but you might want to go through the Panama Canal or the Suez Canal, but you can't use that right now because it's under attack. Ship will cost you $100,000. It'll be between 40 and 60 feet long, and you got to know how to navigate the weather, about how to play with your ship, and have a lot of experience doing this. It isn't something that you find a lark with and then want to do it. You have to be prepared. So you also need a lot of equipment for this ship. And you will need solar panels on it. You will need wind gauges. You will need provisions, lifeboat raft, all kinds of survival gear to be on this. You need $30,000 worth of survival gear to be on this kind of a trip with your ship. And many people think it's just an easy thing to go through the Panama Canal. It'll cost you about $2,000 or $3,000 to go through it. And if you stay at a port longer than, if you dock your ship at a marina, it'll cost you between $1,000 to $3,000 a month. So it's an expensive proposition. That's why you need to be planned out and go with a partner. You can do other routes. Some people do it for speed, but you can do it maybe in under 100 days, and you go through the top of Australia, underneath Africa, and through the Panama Canal, or you can go from Victoria, British Columbia, and go a more southern route around like this. Or instead of doing it yourself or with a partner, you can go on the World Cruising Club, which you can let other people steer the boat for you, and you take a ride with them. You can do this around the world with them. It takes about a year. It goes 26,000 nautical miles. And you can be part of a team doing this, or you can just go part of the way through the Atlantic, just maybe doing the Atlantic Ocean. Whatever it is, you can get on this. About 1,200 people do it a year, and you go in a regatta like this. For a sailboat, this is how they call it tacking. You move the sail to be able to go in different directions. And you can do this. Many people have done this. And what's really interesting to me, every 4 years they have a race. It's called the Vendée Globe. And this is fantastic. This is a race that circumnavigates the world, and part of it actually goes a different route. From northern France, it'll go 24,000 nautical miles, and you can do it in about 74 days. From France, in the North Atlantic to the South Atlantic, around Antarctica, back up to the South Atlantic, and here. And you go on specialized boats with hydrofoils on them. These boats cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, so you need to be sponsored. And you go in this route, like I mentioned, around Antarctica and back up around like this. And you can go incredibly fast, about 65 miles an hour. You sleep, take cat naps, and that's how you're able to do this. You do this alone. You have batteries and navigation, communications, and this is a thrill of a life to do this. This is a sailing race, not for the faint-hearted. So that's how you can do that. Now we're going to follow a drop of water and follow it to the end of its course, actually. We're going to follow it. A drop of water becomes a snowflake and falls on the Nevada Misty Peak, which is in southern Peru. And actually, this peak is 340 miles southeast of Lima and 100 miles west from Lake Titicaca. And it'll start here. So this snowflake will start out on this mountain, shown here, which will become the headwaters of the Amazon River. And it melds in to a brook or a stream called the Pura Vista River right here. This then turns into, on the way up north through Peru, it'll turn into the Apurimac River, which goes by the silver mining town of Calamaya Mines. So it increases in size as it goes north, and we're following again this drop of water. And then it becomes the Urubamba River, that runs past Cusco and particularly Machu Picchu. So if you're in Machu Picchu and you look down, the river there is really part of the way the Amazon River is flowing to the north, shown here. It rises in the Andes to the southeast of Cusco, and it gets bigger. Ultimately, it becomes the Ucayali River, which it gets bigger and makes a bigger river to go up north, to go up here. And then, the river then, Ucayali River, shown here, will take a right turn and go east for about 2,000 miles to the Atlantic Ocean. It's been going about 1,600 or 1,800 miles up north, and will then turn to go this way. To the east. And we're gonna bump into one of the towns there in Peru called Iquitos, which is really the headwaters of the Amazon River as it increases and goes eastward. This is Iquitos. It's the largest city in the world, not accessible by road. You only get there by plane or boat. 160,000 people, the Spanish colonial town. And again, Ucayali River comes up to Iquitos, which then goes eastbound into the Atlantic. And Iquitos is really the Venice of the South America. Everything's on stilts, but not as grandiose buildings as Venice. And it looks like this. This is paradise. And what happens then is that there are 1,100 tributaries then that start flowing into the Amazon River as it goes east. 1,100 of them, which means that it increases in size from 1 to 6 miles wide. In the rainy season, it's 20 miles wide. So when you put Iquitos to Manus, which is about 1,000 miles, the river will continue. And Manus is a port city where a lot of tourists get off it, a city of 2 million, considered the Paris of the tropics. And a lot of, it's a terminus point for many cruise ships. So, Ucayali River comes to Iquitos, 1,000 miles to Manus, and from Manus it's about 1,000 miles to the Atlantic Ocean. And we're going to cover an island out there, a river island. And along the way, there's 3,000 species of fish that live there in the Amazon, with special dolphins, sloths, special eagles, jaguars, anacondas, monkeys that have a prehensile tail, and pink dolphins. And you get this kind of, in the river, it goes 1.5 miles per hour at this point. And it looks like this. The old river starts to get old, it starts to turn on itself sometimes. And at the end is the delta, which is a couple hundred square miles, and has a river island here, because the river dumps 1.2 billion tons of sediment a year at the end of it. So this island, Marajo Island, is the size of Switzerland. It is 16,000 square miles big. And it looks like this here, Marajo Island. It looks like this. And I wanted to point this out to you because every second, 88 swimming pools of water are dumped into the Atlantic Ocean. And it looks like this with Marajo Island here. And the Amazon rainforest is the size of the United States. And the river itself dumps 20% of all the fresh water into the ocean, water of the world, into the Atlantic Ocean. The Amazon rainforest is a carbon sink. It takes in carbon and then gives us oxygen. It takes billions of tons of carbon in and gives us billions of tons of oxygen. We have lost 25% of the Amazon rainforest. What they do is they cut the growth down and they plant corn or soybeans. The soil isn't that good because all the nutrients have been taken out because it rains so much there. They plant things there, or they use it for grasslands for cattle, because each head of cattle takes 3 or 4 acres of land to use. So this land we are decreasing this, and we in this club, along with other clubs, have had a lot of lectures about climate change. This one is on us about what we're taking away from the world. This is our responsibility of what we're doing. This needs to stop. You might say, well, that's 2,500 miles away. Who cares about that? Well, down south in the southern villages down here, there's a rape going on, a rape of land, where, as far as you can see, right around the new high school area, there's no trees. They have phony names for villages that, like Bubbling Brook or whatever, and all these kind of names that don't make any sense. We are raping those lands down south. The same thing's going on down here as it is in the Amazon. I just wanted to make my point about this. Nobody ever talks about this. So, that drop of water can be evaporated into the air, to be turned into a cloud for precipitation. It rains 100 times a day in the Amazon River, the Amazon forest, and it can rain. Remember, with nature, everything is recycled or reused, nothing is created, and nothing is destroyed. And when it meets the Atlantic Ocean, it looks like this because of all the sediments that it's carrying from South America into the ocean. That drop of water can go on if it survives and go around, and all those gyres that you saw, it take 1,000 years for it to go around. So one drop of water can travel 1,000 years and travel 50,000 miles. Now, on a personal level, I've been all talking about things that are pedantic and esoteric. Okay, so on a personal level, we're going to go to Norway in the spring. We go to Bergen, and there's a hike up a mountain called Mount Erliken. Okay, you can take the cable car up, but my wife and I don't want to. There's 1,400 steps to go up, and this is what Europeans do. They consider that wonderful to have this kind of hike, but yet we take, a lot of times, air-conditioned cable cars to go up. It's 2,100 feet up. I think that would be an adventure. That's what I'm looking forward to. Instead of paying my Viking cruise $130 to get a bus ride and a cable car up where there's shops on top, we want to hike up. We want to do something. Same with Mount Florian in Bergen, Norway. We take a trail up the same way. When we were in Egypt, back 2 years ago, we were shocked. We were in 2 busloads of tourists. And when it came time they asked who wants to go up inside the pyramid. My wife and I were the only ones that raised our hand. For $23 per person, we wanted to go up inside the world's most iconic monument in the world. There's nothing else like it. So what would that be like going up 253 steps going up? And the other people, well, they went out in 115-degree weather. They took pictures and went back to the bus. All 60 of them. Jeez.
That's true.
You know, do something. Don't sit there on a bus.
No,
Make it happen.
awesome.
This is what I mean by getting involved. You don't have to do something Superman-like and dramatic, but get involved in life. That's not getting involved in sitting on a bus. It was tremendous seeing Khufu's sarcophagus right in front of us and going up. These walls here were made 5,000 years ago. What an engineering marvel. So, a while back, we went to Santorini, an island off of Greece. And it's based on an ancient caldera. And of course, from the cruise ship, you can take the usual cable cars up. But there's a path that I saw that snakes up it. But the path is dirty, it has dung on it. But I made it up at the same time that my wife went up on it, and the same thing. Okay. So this is how you get to know a place as you walk it up. Because I won't forget the walk, but you could easily forget the cable car ride.
Right.
So in the ship here we were in, they had an excursion to go to this island here where there's ancient volcanic activity. No one on the entire ship of hundreds of people wanted to do this. They all wanted to go up and take the tourist thing at the top where there are shops to buy small, crappy trinkets. Go up there and then say, oh, I got something from Santorini. Well, shopping sucks. Just experience the thing. Get involved with it. This is how you get to know an ancient caldera with sides that are 400 feet tall. Or you go to Curray, Colorado, and take a 2-mile hike to see ancient dinosaur tracks 120 million years ago when a dinosaur, a herbivore the size of a bus, walked this and then walked back. That's really interesting to see. Okay, so far, so good. So, lastly, we're going to talk about the Great Wall of China, how you can hike this. The Great Wall of China is 5 times the length of the United States. It is 13,000 miles long. It's built in segments over 2,500 years. So it's mainly done to protect Beijing, where the emperor lived, because they didn't want to be invaded from the north by the Mongols. So it was built in different sections over different times. So we're going to go over this, how they did it. This is meant to keep the Mongols out. Actually, they would come on horseback across, and the You want to prevent the horses, because those are the most dangerous things to have when you're fighting. And troops can go on this kind of way and get easily from one place to another. So it was meant to protect China and preserve it. The first emperor that does this was Qin, back in 200 BC. He started having a major construction project doing this. And it was built over time in various dynasties. The Qin started around 200 BC. And then the Han dynasty took over. The Qing dynasty took over about 900 AD. Jinling happened at about 1300 AD. And then the Ming dynasty, which is the main walls that you've really seen in the best condition, are the newest ones built. So let's take a look. When they went through certain sections to build this wall, everybody had to help. Somebody had to make the stones to make them into walkable sections to walk on. Someone had to bring in water. Mortar had to be used. Ramparts had to be made. Engineers had to be used to be sure everything was level. In the beginning, this was made out of compacted earth and adobe. But then they got more sophisticated later on to bring all this stuff. Someone had to supply food for all these workers here. A major engineering job that would take years no matter where it went through. And soldiers were involved, common people, criminals, to make this kind of wall. And what it would do was it would protect China, but at the same time it isolated China. That's why no one here in this room can tell me more than 5 sentences about China. We know little about it. And this is because it was used, it kept secrets in China with this wall to be able to do this. Some of the secrets were gunpowder, how they made paper to write on, calligraphy, and some of their fantastic religions like Buddhism and Taoism. So that's what was kept from the Western world. But they wanted it this way. And what happened in 1200 AD, Genghis Khan just went around these walls and conquered the place. And the Mongols took over China. So it was made in different sections. Qin dynasty in green that you can see. The Han dynasty that we talked about that even protected the Silk Road. The Wei dynasty in the pink and in the purple. Some of these go up into northern China, these walls, near the border of Russia and into North Korea. And it took, again, about 2,500 years, and the Ming dynasty is what you mainly walk on when you take tours of the Great Wall of China. It has fortresses every once in a while. It's 40 feet tall. It can store provisions like food and garrison troops and for troops to sleep in also. This is the construction that it would take to do. And yes, it's the world's longest cemetery. People are buried on the side of it, not inside of it. 1 million people. And because this is a source of national pride, 12 million people visit it a year. They try to take care of it by refurbishing it. There's really no camping on the Great Wall, especially in the touristed areas like Badaling, Jiaxing, and Jilin. And there are no trash bins. You can't cook on the wall to be able to hike it and stay on it. It's really not allowed in most places, but you can, in the more isolated places, pitch a tent and sleep there. You're on your own with food and water. But we want to avoid this, because this is not seeing it. If I was here, I'd jump off the wall. This isn't worthwhile. So what you want to do instead is see the real China, the real northern Spain, the real America by taking the Appalachian Trail, or the real villages and walking everywhere you can to different swimming pools and take a bicycle and explore. That's what I mean. So you want to see the real place that looks like this. This is what to do. You want to see this kind of shots. You want to see this at night. And yes, it's gorgeous. And this in the springtime, and this in the wintertime. That's the way to experience a country. And this. There's nothing like this. So they do have tours that you can take, of course, with the Great Wall hiking. They've taken 6,000 people over the last number of years, and they have different kind of tours. where they pick you up and take you to, from your hotel, take you on a long walk and drop you back at the hotel. And they have different tours that go from 1 day to 10 days where you can hike this kind of thing. This is the way to see this. So, you can explore these places. You don't have to spend a lot of money and go to Europe. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can just do it in the villages here or any place that you are in. This is the way to experience it right here and like this. The Great Wall of China. That is the way to see it. So I hope you've enjoyed my incredible journeys, and thank you very much.